You're an optimist, you said, like 30 minutes ago.
I'm an optimist.
And I've just been sitting on that because we then proceeded to talk about the fossil nature of our industry, which is, I believe, is quite true. What parts, maybe you weren't just saying just in cigars, but in life, you're an optimist, but explain, and where does that come from?
Well, you're talking to a guy with a bachelor's degree in drum set performance.
We tried to get a drum kit here for tonight's
You don't
event.
get a degree in performance if you're not an optimist, bro. That definitely takes a glass half full approach to life. Man, I think life is easier when you give people the benefit of the doubt and you trust people. And I'm an optimist, man. I don't know. I always have been.
There's a certain level of optimism you have to have too to launch a business. In 2021, right?
2021, yeah.
Launch a cigar brand. Put all your eggs in
the middle of a respiratory pandemic.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
And go.
Yeah.
I knew of you, man. I remember I think it was 2016 or 2017. I was in New York for a design conference and at a creative agency I was working at. And I've been smoking cigars for probably 5 or 6 years at that point. And I was like, there's one place I want to go, and it's Nat Sherman Townhouse in the city. And went with a buddy of mine, was so enthralled by the place, the grandness of it, the class, the humidor like selection and the people that worked there. I was like, I just like being in here. And I'm not like the townhouse kind of guy, and that's the first time I tried a timeless blend. I had a Pan Americana back when it was it's like a lime green and orange band or something.
Yeah.
One of those, and I had a Sterling, and I was like, I love these cigars. So then I started looking them up online, and your face started popping up everywhere. Everywhere I went, it was the guy in the suit, and just became a big fan. And then 2019, I was working at Cigar Club. We did a lot of work together there, and then really shortly after we started doing stuff, the merger or the acquisition was announced, and then they started announcing that they were going to close it. And I was like, this is devastating for the cigar community, period.
Yeah.
And then I don't know how much longer later, you came back to revive iconic brands and start creating your own. And I remember from a consumer mindset, being like, this is a great day for cigars. And
we certainly thought so.
It was just encouraging to see. 'Cause so many times you see in large acquisitions and stuff, the legacy and the heritage and the greatness that was there just dies and turns to nothing, and it turns to spreadsheets and people deciding what the best movers are, and that's what they do and whatever. So I want to know from you, there's a question in here somewhere. I want to know from that point, from the meeting you have where you find out they're turning it off, what happens next in your brain?
It wasn't that drastic. There was,
in my head, it's an epic movie scene.
Yeah, I wish it was. It was actually much longer and more drawn out and more painful because the plan was not to close the business. It was never the plan. That was a consequence for other business decisions. The handmade premium cigar industry was handmade premium cigar side of the business was not as critical to their original acquisition of Nat Sherman total. And so as they started creating synergies, that was eliminating the support infrastructure for the cigar business. And so ultimately, the future of our cigar business under Nat Sherman, under Altria ownership, just wasn't possible. But there were endless conversations about how to preserve it and keep it going. And then we even went so far as to try and sell the business in 2019. I mean, you can do a simple search right now and find we put out a press release that was basically a for sale sign.
Wow.
And made incredible progress to sell the Nat Sherman cigar side of the business, including the retail store, including the brands, the salespeople. And then March of 2020, that became no longer feasible for an acquisition. So then ultimately, everyone was working from home. The store was closed. Everything was, the world was shut down, especially in the New York metropolitan area. And so eventually we opened to close in the summer of 2020. So from the summer of 19 to the summer of 20, I lived in a complete state of unknown because we were balancing all these different potential outcomes, and each outcome had a different outcome for me.
Yeah.
So it was a very, I never thought of it that way until just now, but it was a very long year of just living in constant unknown. So at least once we knew that we were closing and it was over, it was kind of a relief just to at least be able to start formulating a plan for my life. Before that I couldn't do it. So that was the summer of 20, and I really did not know what the future was going to hold. I mean, I give a lot of credit to Altria. They were very generous with every employee, with keeping everyone paid during the pandemic, and then severance plans for people as we rolled off. I mean, they were so thoughtful. So even as we were winding down the business, there wasn't a lot of time for me to formulate my plan for what's next. But I did have a lot of conversation with my peers and other people in the industry, and the overwhelming encouragement that I received from all walks of industry, that if there was the right time to do something on my own, and if it was something I wanted to do, that it was the time to go do it. And so that kind of encouragement was just so overwhelming. It was like, well, yeah, let's go do it, man. And we did.
Just that easy.
I mean, no, definitely not.
Okay, so what happens next after you make the internal decision that, I want to do that?
Well, again, like so many pieces. So my original plan, Ferio Tego, was always going to be the name. And originally,
why is that?
It's the Herklots family motto on our coat of arms.
Oh, very cool.
And
it means?
I usually say it's Latin for go fuck yourself, but everyone's like, really? I'm like, no. It means the literal translation, if you speak with the one and only Terrence Riley, who studied Latin, will say it translates literally to I strike, I cover. But we use the translation strike and defend.
Very
which
cool.
There's also a regiment that uses Ferio Tego and strike and defend. So that's the name. So I knew that was going to be the name. And my original plan was just Elegancia and Generoso, to go back to the factories, new blends, one blend, one size, one Dominican, one Nicaragua, and go kick indoors with 2 SKUs and figure it out. But as we were winding down the business, it became evident that there might be an opportunity to buy the brands that I had helped build and create and preserve. And that was a very different proposition. But we did that instead.
You did it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I still get to smoke Sterling, one of my all-time
It's so good.
favorite
And honestly,
Connecticut cigars.
I mean, that was not plan A, buying all that. The plan was not to spend a lot of money. It became, but
that changed.
yeah, that
clearly.
was not the plan. But honestly, that was the idea. As an artist, there is something perverted about how you hold on to your history, You know, that for all intents and purposes, that was my discography, you know, like, and so coming to grips with the idea that it was over was just like mourning any other death,
Yeah.
you know, especially at that time, you know, I mean, there was all kinds of loss where you just had to deal with it and move on, and that's it. And so that was I was emotionally fine with that. But once it looked like the brands, there was so much interest in the brands that potentially someone else could buy them. And that then there's a risk that down the road, you could rediscover Timeless and say, oh, I used to love this cigar, and then smoke it and have it be terrible. That was really, it was a paralyzing idea to me. I couldn't wrap my head around it. And so we engaged with Altria. By then I approached now my business partner, Brendan. He was the former CFO of Nat Sherman.
Okay.
And I said to him, it looks like they're entertaining selling the brands. I said that we would buy them. And he's like, who the hell is we? I was like, well, track with me here. My Ferio Tego idea, let's take that, but make that not just the brand, but the halo of the company. And then we move Timeless and Metropolitan under it, and we restore it right back to the way we did it before. And he thought it was a good idea. So we did. So we engaged, we put in an offer. It was a lot of firsts. I mean, I'd never put together an acquisition proposal or anything.
Yeah.
You know, it was wild. But ultimately, again, credit to Altria. We were not the highest bidder. We were not the lowest bidder. It was a fair offer, but we, in their minds, were the right suitor to continue the work.
Yep.
So I will forever be grateful for their support in this process too. And then we got to work. We did the acquisition. We reached out to the factories. This was now November of 20. So the factories all closed for holidays. So we said, we just bought all the brands. Don't throw anything out. We'll regroup in January. We'll start all over again. And between, you know, when things started going bad in March, April of 2020, everyone stopped smoking. You know, stores were closed. The industry was really facing a pretty brutal future. By the time January came and the factories reopened, we were in the middle of a huge boom. Everyone was, you know, riding high on consumption. The factories were at maximum capacity.
Yep.
So we're all excited. Like, hey, you know, let's start making cigars. And the factories were like, we don't have any room to make your cigars. We're all, you know, we're backed up. We're like, well, that's not good because we just spent all this money on the brands.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, man, every factory put us in the front of the line. Every factory started making cigars for us without even deposits because we had already spent our money. And they said, yeah, we got you. No problem.
In your role that you had with Nat Sherman, you were the factory liaison. You were working on the projects, blending, going down there, working with each individual factory. So you had that relationship.
Yeah.
That, I think first of all, the experience of working with a factory, granted my experience is quite smaller than yours, but the point that I'm making is there's a different level of hospitality. There's a different level of care and just operationally working with factories. And in the 6 years that I've worked in cigars, there's still relationships that I have in the Dominican Republic and Nicaragua that would make a super tiny run for me 6 years ago because we had this relationship, and they would break minimums to do it again for me now. Like, that's how I see it unfold because of our size, where they're like, Dave, whatever you need, man. Like, I want to do it for you. I want to make it happen.
That's the same. I mean, there are also plenty of factories that would not. And, you know,
I'm enchanted by the ones that will.
Well, of course, but we were talking earlier. There are contributors within our industry. We're a small industry, but let's face it, it's still big. I mean, the landscape of all things handmade premium cigars and the way this ecosystem works, there are a lot of participants in this great existence of handmade premium cigars. And I genuinely believe that because we share this in common, we all are rowing in the same direction.
Yep.
But for those of the larger scale, there has to be some level of sacrifice to support the scale, and oftentimes that comes in those nuances, in the ability to be complex and deep, and the same applies in retail, the same applies in manufacturing, but when we're talking about something that's creative, this is creative. This is art at the end of the day. No different than a song, no different than a dish. The more artistic and creative you want to be, the more time it takes, and probably the less return you get for that investment, the more time you spend.
Yeah.
But as I mentioned earlier, I'm obviously stupid because I have a degree in music and performance. So my judgment is not exactly sound. And I believe in putting the time and putting the effort and putting the money into the nuances and the things that make something special and the things that make them memorable. And I surround myself with like people, including the factories that we work with.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to that point, I think we're living year after year in a world, in places that people interact with, where it's getting increasingly less craft driven, less intentional, more automated, more efficient. Right? These larger groups doing acquisitions, and it's easy for them to trim off certain things. I'm not countering that back to what you were talking about. But it's always, how do we more efficiently, faster, cheaper execute? And so when there's businesses and brands, I think, that are saying, our first model is not how do we do it more efficiently. Our first model is how do we do it better? How do we give a better experience? How do we craft a better cigar? How do we tell a better story? How do we do all of these things better? It actually becomes a marketing strategy in and of itself, because it's so rare. It's increasingly rare. And it does cost more, but what is the ultimate payback, right? Like longevity.
If you look at what Ferio Tego has done in the last 4 years, we have a very comprehensive portfolio of blends across 3 brands, 12 blends. Now that's a lot in 3 years, but
Yep.
but let's pretend it's longer. 12 blends for an established brand and market is not out of the realm of normalcy in 2025. But if you look at what we've done, we really have not launched anything new, with the exception of the annual limited releases, doing those every year, a couple limited editions here and there. If you look at how we've gone to market, partnered with Davidoff USA, employing the most talented, best of the best reps in those channels to establish enduring and meaningful relationships with retailers. And then how have I spent my time? Working with the factories to preserve and maintain the experiences that we've already created, and working with the reps to be in market to continue to demonstrate partnership through meetings and events. It's not a novel idea, and it's not particularly innovative. It's the way I grew up in the industry. But as this industry and so many others have become commoditized and have turned into memes, as that pendulum has swung, to me it leaves a wide open place to restore some of the fundamentals that I've had since I started in the industry, of building the relationships, doing something great over and over and over again, doing it at a fair price where the customer wins, making it so that it is memorable and repeatable. It's so core to what we do, and it feels so new in 2025, but really it's just 1995 on repeat.
It blows my mind that you could possibly get questions from people like, what are you coming out with that's new? It's like, I don't know. We have how many SKUs and sizes and lines and brands, and
And I
we're
also-
4 years old.
Yeah, we're new.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah. Here's what's
brand-
new. We're just trying to keep doing
brand
this.
years and people years are exactly the same. And 4 years old is 4 years old.
Yep.
So we are fortunate to be more independent and on our feet and able to navigate the world in a way that we couldn't as a 1-year-old. But we just moved out of toddler phase
Yep.
as a brand. And I'm proud of that. You know, it can be frustrating, especially this is my 26th year in the business. So starting over is always a tricky thing. But starting over, eyes wide open, with a clear understanding of who we are and where we want to go and what we want to be and how we want to do it. And also recognizing that whatever plan we've established, we also have to be fully willing to abandon it as the facts of the day change. You know,
So true.
and that's just the way it is. But yeah, I'm so proud of where we are, and I'm so proud of the work. And even though it's definitely less efficient and more expensive to get on a plane every week and leave my family and walk into stores and shake hands and meet customers and meet retailers, I think the flip side of that is it is more meaningful and it is more memorable, and it's worth more than a discount. It's worth more than free goods to be able to look at someone and shake their hand and say, thank you for your business. Thank you for the consideration. You know, we are a traditional old school industry, and no matter how innovative we become, and I welcome a lot of those innovations and growth, we can't forget what made this industry so special, which is great people working with great people together.
That's very well said. I think that there's, in cigars specifically, that's the beautiful picture of the cigar industry that you just painted. The handshakes, the relationships, the like in-person nature of it. But I think two things can be true. You can have that, and you can also innovate, and you can also grow, and you can also challenge how you operate and how you reach customers and how you do that.
We're doing it right now.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, this
Right
is
here on the pod.
This is exactly where the worlds collide, right? We're doing a medium that did not exist when I started in the industry in 1999. None of this. We couldn't shoot video on little cameras. We certainly couldn't broadcast it for everyone to watch.
Yep.
But here we are sitting face to face, enjoying a handmade cigar together in a beautiful brick and mortar retail establishment, which is exactly what we were doing 26 years ago.
Yeah.
So I love the fact that you can have the best of both.
All right. Speaking of best of both, we got wine and we got cigars. And I told you right before we started, I admittedly I like wine. I don't know much about it. It's one of the rabbit holes I haven't dove down. I know you know a lot about it, and I've never really paired wine and cigars. So I'm excited to ask you about your thoughts on the relationship between wine and tobacco and cigars. And
well,
give me some education, Michael.
I think of,
and I'm sipping some wine.
So first of all, when someone says, you know, what's your favorite thing to have with a cigar? It's whatever is closest, open, and wet. I mean, let's face it. You know, yes. The answer is yes. But wine is, in general, lower alcohol when compared to spirits. Presents a family of flavors that really can't be replicated in tobacco the way many spirit flavors can be. And wine is meant to be an accompaniment. It's, you know, I consider it to be a basic food group and wouldn't consume it as often as possible. But the relationship of wine and food, of course, is a natural one. And I believe by considering the cigar like you would consider a dish, when then thinking about what wine would work, you're able to create an experience that together is better than just the individual, which is what makes a pairing a pairing. And it becomes difficult to do that with high alcohol spirits because it's so dominant,
Yes.
both in ferocity of alcohol and heat, as well as the dominating flavor, that it very often arguably replaces the flavor and nuance of the cigar rather than really allowing that marriage to occur. So for me, wine is perfect.
What are some of your favorites? Like regions, winemakers.
I spend a lot of time in Napa, so I have a great affection for Napa and New World wines, but I also appreciate Old World wines. I've really gone down a rabbit hole of Rhone in France, Rhone. Rhone. They incorporate Grenache into a lot of their blends, and food wines, Old World wines, they tend to be tannic heavy, meaning that there's an extraction sense when you take a sip, almost drying. And so the reason we favor big Old World reds and meat is not because they're the same color, but because red meat tends to be salty and fatty. And so a wine that is red and drier or drying creates that dialogue between the fat and salt of the meat and then this drying effect from the tannin of the red, which is why the opposite is true for leaner meats, whether it's white meat or even poultry or whatever. They tend to be drier meats. They have less fat. And so because they're leaner and skew drier in style, they benefit from wines that are more unctuous and savory and saliva inducing. And so cigars are very similar. You have cigars that are fatty and rich and they create saliva and they fill your mouth, and you have other cigars that are leaner. And so you can play exactly with the same rule book, just with a different instrument.
Quick break in our podcast to talk about one of our favorite new cigar accessory brands in 2025, which is Valet Humidity. They are making, in my opinion, the best humidity packs in cigars. And also, look, you guys know if you've shopped from us before, they're fully customizable in their small shipping sizes. And they've got the larger, more retail size ones and all of the percentages that you need. Beautiful packaging, quality product, awesome people that are running Valet. And we just can't get enough of these. So we got a link in this video to their Amazon shop where you can purchase them for yourself. Click that link if you want to try and buy them, because it also helps support our channel, just like Valet supports our channel. And there's nothing we love more than supporting awesome people doing awesome things in cigars, doing things new, doing things exciting, doing things better than they've ever been done before. So shout out to Valet Humidity. Check them out, the link in this video, and let us know if you trust Valet with your cigars. Back to the pod.
Would you say, if we're looking at just the cigar, talking tobacco, when you're working on a new blend, or maybe you're just working on a new year, a new crop year, and you're smoking through different tobaccos, how do you view like the different primings of tobacco when it comes to like what you're talking about, like what needs to complement strength, body? You have obviously combustion, like there's a lot of that goes into making a cigar. What's your approach to like the material side of it?
When I approach blending, flavor is the last thing I focus on. I think as consumers, even retailers to that extent, the first thing we do is we taste it. You're immediately trying to pick up flavors. But there's other things that we are experiencing that we don't necessarily verbalize or review on a conscious level. It tends to be subconscious. So I elevate those things to my conscious decision making first. So for me, first is body. And
Defined as
defined as the weight and mouthfeel
Okay.
and texture of the smoke when it hits your palate. And I try and create the biggest, thickest, densest, most enveloping body possible, regardless of strength and flavor. Then,
hence Sterling
yeah, and
and
elegancia.
elegancia. Yeah.
So body is my North Star. But then you also need to balance the condition of the palate. So we've all experienced it, but we probably don't articulate it. When you smoke a cigar and then immediately spit, and
Yes.
only certain cigars make you do it, and you're like, "That's weird. I just had a cigar and spit. Now I'm spitting. Like, why am I spitting? Because your palate is being stimulated to overproduce saliva. We also have those moments where we immediately reach to drink something
Yeah.
because the cigar is almost astringent and dries your mouth. So body balanced with condition are the two things I always lead with as I'm building a blend. Then polishing flavor, but at the same time also building the plot. I believe strongly that a blend should tell a story. I would never want to listen to a song that's only a chorus.
Yeah.
I don't want to, a story has chapters. A play has acts and scenes. Same with movies. There has to be something to pull you along, to keep you interested. You need some level of conflict. Then you need resolution. Then, all of that is what makes a story compelling. I believe that cigars are exactly the same. And so as I'm finishing flavor, I'm also figuring out how we can create those moments of discovery in a blend where the story turns and it introduces a new character into this story to make it more interesting, so that when the cigar finally resolves at the conclusion of the story, you have been brought on a journey that's had something to say, which is not as easy as just saying, well, let's put some Ligero in the middle of this motherfucker to turn it,
Yeah.
it's not that specific. But then it's then the relationship of seed variety, farm location, harvest year incorporating climate, leaf position, curing, fermentation, aging, processing, all of those things together, final aging after, all of those things together equal the specific tobacco itself. And those are all the variables that net you out to one thing. Seed, leaf position, geographic location of the farm, harvest year, all four of those equal one leaf. And changing any one of those variables, even if the others remain exactly the same, does not guarantee that that leaf remains the same. And so I don't know how, other than big companies have a lot of people, I don't know how you can create consistency with a portfolio as comprehensive as ours, when you're constantly focused on creating new things. How do you keep 12 shows running consistently on Broadway? You gotta recast a character once in a while and put someone back in. If you're not constantly auditioning those tobaccos to know exactly what tobacco is going to play the right role when it comes time to need it, then your consistency is going to suffer.
And how often does that happen? Like if we used an example of 5 productions of Elegancia, or that one's different because you come out with a new one, but Panamericana.
Yeah.
Over the course of 5 productions, however long that is, how often are you having to replace a tobacco?
As often as one runs out. So it just depends. Like look at that
and then
blend.
what's the process there? All right, hey, we're out of the Pella de Oro that was in this one.
Yeah, so first things first.
What's next?
You take the next one in line and make the blend and taste it. But if the next one in line was grown in a season that was wetter, then the characteristic of that tobacco is more muted. than
Oh, interesting.
one that was grown in a drier, hotter year. Plants have to suffer for flavor. The more a plant suffers, the richer, denser, stronger the flavor and intensity is, because the plant has to fight for water.
Yeah.
And so it grows thick and deep and rich. When the plant doesn't have to suffer, then it's a wuss. Just like us.
I was going to say there's some parallels here.
I'm telling
no?
you, tobacco and people,
That's
bro,
life.
we're the same. You grow up easy. You never got punched in the face. You never had to fight for anything. You don't have roots. You got to build roots to be able to find the water and pull those nutrients all the way back up into the leaves. And then that comes across in flavor and strength. So you have to audition that tobacco. If that's a wet year and the last year was a dry year, then you might have to move up a priming to find more strength and intensity to counter the diminished flavor from the wet year in the same priming. Or you might have to go to a younger year, same position, or younger year even lower to counter the youthfulness.
So then ultimately you could end up with five, 6 iterations, technically the same tobacco, from different years.
I try and over the years I've tried to perfect the way I describe it, but we talk about blend consistency, and I really think it's better to talk about the experience consistency.
Yeah.
The blend consistency is worthless if the outcome is an inconsistent experience, because you are relentlessly committed to the blend being exactly the same, regardless of the fact that the tobaccos are different.
Yeah.
So I believe in experience consistency.
Yeah. It's not about keeping the blend exactly the
Who
same.
cares?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that's also why I don't,
People want the same taste and they want the same experience. It doesn't matter what the ingredient list is.
And no one is going to put out a press release. No brand who wants to live is going to put out a press release every time they change a tobacco.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because everyone's going to assume that it's immediately different. And you might still have the last production sitting in your humidor, and someone's going to read that something changed, buy it, and be like, oh, it's completely different now. I mean, that's the way consumers work. And it's just not worth it. We are consistent in the experience of our blends. And so that means that we must be willing to reblend when necessary, to recast the tobacco to play that suitable replacement role to keep the experience of that blend the same. And I'm not convinced, just through 26 years of enjoying handmade premium cigars, that every company is sharing my same affection for experience consistency.
Right. Well, and it's harder to do it that way. I would
Way
argue.
harder, bro. It's much easier to put out a new press release and be like, look what we just came out with.
New cigar.
This is new. This is new. This is new.
Yeah.
But you know what's not easy? It's not easy for you to find 6 more slots for 2 new projects from Ferio Tego, and then for you to learn 6 new stories that you have to tell your customers that then they need to relearn when they just learned the last Ferio Tego story.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's... Look, I'm a musician. No one wants to go see a 90-minute concert of their favorite band play new material. Right?
That is
it's
damn
a nightmare.
true.
It's a nightmare.
I
You want to
hate
hear your
hearing
hits.
one.
You want to hear your hits.
Yeah.
And then the band will graciously ask for permission to
Can we play you one of our new ones?
Can we play something new for you? And then you suffer through that together, and then you go back to the hit. And of course, creatively, you want to evolve as an artist, and you're always working on new stuff. I'm always working on new stuff. But I'm also up against a track record of hits. Now, not everyone knows the hits. They're hits in my mind. But when you look at Metropolitan, 30 years of that brand, timeless, 12, 13 years. There are people who have depended on those blends for generations now.
Yeah.
They want me to be consistent. They want to hear their hit. They want to hit play when they get in their car, right? One of the biggest decisions we make when we get in the car is, what am I going to play first? What song is going to set the mood for today?
Yeah.
And usually we know exactly what song is going to do it and why. And we have songs that we turn to
Yep.
when we work out, when we're going to go on a long drive, if we're trying to fall asleep, there are songs that we have learned to depend on because they deliver exactly what we need.
They never change.
And I believe handmade premium cigars, at least Ferio Tego, must fill that same role. We have to do exactly the same thing because you've already made your mind up, or you're taking a risk.
Yeah.
And you're going to listen to us for the first time. And so we have to deliver something from the beginning that's compelling, and it's so memorable that you want to listen to it again. And when
And it
you
better
listen
taste
to
the same.
yes. Again, not a novel idea.
No.
But it feels awfully novel in the memification world of 2025.
Yeah. Yeah. The instant gratification, the new. Yeah, it's very, there's a lot of parallels to that, to running a retail establishment, right? When giving a consistent experience. We were talking a lot about that earlier. I think, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this too, from your time at the townhouse. But it's easy to say you want to be some certain type of way, or you want to deliver a certain experience when it's reciprocated in a way that you so expect it to be. Or maybe you're having an off day that day and you work in a retail establishment or in some form of service. To me, consistency is the hardest part. It's showing up and doing the same thing with the same vigor, following the same code of conduct, treating people well, listening. It takes energy to do that, and it takes energy to do it the same every time.
I had a store GM when I first started at Nat Sherman. His name is Pat Felitti. He came from a steakhouse in Midtown. And we adopted a lot of restaurant practices for our retail store. Cycle of service, consistency in how we touch customers. That sounds pervy. I didn't mean that.
Engage with customers.
But also, I use this phrase a lot. We need to preserve formality over familiarity when it comes to engaging with customers. Mm-hmm. You can be close, you can develop a rapport, but at the end of the day, there's a transaction that's going to occur, and you can't take the magic out of the front of house experience that a consumer has with you, or a retailer has with me, or I have with a consumer for that matter. You have to be able to hold yourself accountable to being professional and being consistent. And when formality is first, you tend to do that. Pat used to say, you don't get extra credit for doing your job. Like we would do performance reviews, and people would meet expectations, and they'd be like, yeah, but I did this, Well, but that's exactly what you're supposed to do. So you've met every expectation.
That's how I feel about tipping culture.
It's very difficult to exceed the expectation. So when you can find the opportunities to exceed expectations, now you're really earning points that are enduring to keep that customer forever. This is, for better or worse, this has done a lot of wonderful things, and it's done a lot of terrible things for culture. But this transparency into process, I think, has become so artificially manipulated, where everything is behind the scenes. Everything is this is the dirty work that you didn't see. I don't want to see that. I don't want to see Donald Duck with his head off smoking a cigarette next to the bathroom at Disney World or whatever. You know what I mean? I want the magic.
Yeah.
That's what I think consumers really want. We could pretend that we want to see the struggle and but we don't. The things we love the most are the things that come together and are what we believe them to be and expect them to be and want them to be. And that's our approach. There's so much of this behind the scenes, factory struggles, behind the scenes. These are the wars we're waging. Dude, we all are. So what? Who cares? Keep it. Don't tell me what you're going to be. Go be it and let me decide if that's what you are.
Yeah.
Because if I have to convince you what I am trying to be, I'm doubly failing. I didn't do it in the first place, and I'm not changing your mind. So be relentless about what and who you want to be, and do it because it's your vision. No different than the blends. I think some of the greatest songwriters and writers in general. What's his name? The great producer. I'm blanking on his name now. Hold on, I'll think of it in a minute. He says for him, the audience comes last. The big white dude. He did all the hip hop records. He just came out with a book. Oh my God, I'm blanking on his name.
With the beard?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, I have his book. The Circle book.
How am I blanking on his name?
Rick Rubin.
Rick Rubin. Thank you. The audience comes last. I love that. I love it. When you're creating for your audience, you're serving the wrong master. You're thinking. You're not thinking creatively. You're thinking in a sense to force feed something to someone to meet a demand. Art doesn't meet a demand. That's art. That's what art is. There's no demand for it. You have to create something that's so meaningful that people didn't know they needed it until they experience it, and then they want it, and nothing else will do except that version of it. We're not pop. We're not mainstream. We're none of those things. Pop, you fill a model with a song. If this is what's trending song wise, let's write one that fits that mold. We're not. We're just not.
Yeah, that's I love the music analogies.
Well,
that's what happens when you have a degree in music. It turned out it was worth it.
I'd love to talk to you about economics, but I can't.
No. We're not going there. Yeah, you and me both. Okay, so I'm thinking ahead of, or I'm thinking about our conversation on consistency, reliability, and working hard at that. As you continue to grow Ferio Tego, what is like the vision that excites you, that made you want to do this in the first place? Is it all around just I don't want to say just like it's a lesser than, but is it preserving the brands that you have and continue to deliver that experience? Is there a larger, another thing that wakes you up and you're like, this is where I want to go. This is why I did this. This is why I took the risk and put it all on the line.
It's a little bit yes and a lot of it is, it has to be predicated on our age. I mean, if I look at where I can't wait to get to, I can't wait to get to a point where I don't have to tell Nat Sherman stories anymore. Yeah. That people only remember Ferio as Ferio, But I've done this before because I did it when I got to Nat Sherman, and I was at Davidoff for 9 years. And when I got to Nat Sherman for the first 4 years, everyone was like, "I can't believe you left Davidoff." Like, well, it's literally been half a decade, so get over it,
Yep.
And that's not to say that I'm not proud of the history. Of course, I'm proud of my history and I'm proud of the roots. But it's an indication of youth and where we are at the moment, and the fact that there's still plenty of opportunity to grow. But I'll tell you, one of the things that just really moves me is when I meet people for whom our blends are meaningful. And so for some of them, that is a Nat Sherman story because they discovered it as you did in 2012, 2014.
I'm glad I could talk a lot about Nat Sherman the whole first 20 minutes.
No, but it's an important part of the story. It is. But so many people discovered this hobby during 2020 and 2021 that there is this whole generation now of new cigar enthusiasts that only know Ferio Tego, and they don't know anything about Nat Sherman, which is great because it allows real new discovery.
Yeah.
And so when I meet some of those folks and they talk about the first time they had an Elegancia, or they talk about Suma, or they talk about Timeless and Metro, and the moments that they have turned to those blends, those are the moments for me that are like, this is why we're doing it, which is probably not unlike, hearing your song on the radio or
Yeah.
but I think that's also why I'm on the road so much is, if you want people to really love your work, you got to go on tour. I mean, you have to go tour your album and play and let people come see their favorite band, and don't just leave after the show is over and go to the bar. You go to the room. You go out into the audience and meet people. And this is my, third year of pretty significant travel.
Yeah.
But it's because it's what takes something from being intangible, intangible,
Yeah.
intangible.
I don't do economics or grammar, but you can say whatever the hell you want, Mike.
It's what makes it real.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can work as hard as you want. The cigars go out. You don't know where they go. You don't know who is smoking them. You don't know who's enjoying them. There's no way to feel the impact of your work unless you're doing it live. And to me, there's nothing more meaningful as an artist than performing live. As a drummer, you can't even describe the feeling, which is why it doesn't get old. You can play the same show every night and it's still new and exciting because the moment is live and you don't get that moment back again. And I feel the same way about this.
Wow. It's the human connection at the end of the day.
Yeah, and what else do we have left?
Yeah.
When there's so little of it today, like there's really so little reason to connect face to face in person and look at someone and have a conversation. It's so much easier to avoid it and to just turn to our devices.
Certainly.
That to sit meaningfully with someone and share something so simple but so special as this, and then to have it be mine, is a feeling like none other.
Well, I'm grateful for this moment, smoking this with you. And I look forward to introducing more people to Ferio Tego Generosa, my personal favorite.
That's the 2024 too. I'm on the Elegancia.
This one I resisted for a while because I loved Sterling so much. I'm like, can it be better than like Sterling's? Like, that's my morning cigar. And the like body and complexity, the like big flavor that
It's
this one
hard to
has.
say better,
It's very different.
but it says something that Sterling doesn't.
Yes.
This has
Yes.
more of the darker flavor notes that Sterling is as creamy as a cigar can get.
Yep.
Period.
Yep.
This adds a little more of the decadence and a little more of the savory, but that's because it has Nicaragua and Sterling doesn't.
Yep. Oh, interesting. But that's at Quesada?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, everything Dominican Quesada, everything Nicaragua, Plasencia, Esteli.
Yep.
And then 2 projects in Honduras at Agroindustrias, which is the factory that makes
Yeah.
Camacho, that
Okay.
Davidoff owns.
Okay. Yeah, fantastic. Thank you. Thank you for
Thanks for the
making the
opportunity.
trip out here and coming to hang with us. It's
I
love
appreciate
sharing
the
these
opportunity
conversations.
to even share a couple stories, because for many people, this will be the first time that they even hear the name Ferio Tego. And so I recognize for consumers and for retailers, there is a serious leap of faith to opt in to something brand new. And the gap in time from the moment you have spent your money to the moment that you have lit this up is generally filled with skepticism and regret that you were intended to spend your money on X and instead
On Old Faithful.
you spent it on Y. But that's also why we spend so much time and effort to get that first puff to say something meaningful to help mitigate your stress and anxiety over something new, and to convince you from the first puff that you've made a good decision, that hopefully it invites you to, with an open mind, open palate, open heart, taste new work, and taste it not through the lens and palette of what you were hoping to taste, but rather to approach it as you would a brand new brand or a brand new band or a brand new restaurant, to just come in new and open to a new experience. And by you being generous enough to have us here on the show and to be here in the store to do an event, you are, for all intents and purposes, you are endorsing us to your audience.
We're the promoter, Mike.
And it is a huge vote of confidence, and I really appreciate it.
Well, we love the cigars. We have a Ferio Tego sampler online as well of some of my favorites in my favorite sizes. So if you've never experienced Ferio Tego, great thing to go check out to kind of try something from each factory that
And
you
that's
work
the
with,
other thing too, you know,
which is fun.
on a lot of brands have the advantage of a single origin. And so if you like one blend from one manufacturer, chances are you're going to like most of the blends from
Yep.
that manufacturer
Yep.
because they live within that brand's flavor spectrum. We are 180 degrees from light and creamy and sweet out of Honduras to some of the more medium-bodied stuff and creamier stuff like Sterling, all the way up to fuller and denser and richer like Panamericana and Supreme. And so I would encourage you also, if you have had a Ferio Tego and it just didn't hit for you, figure out which one you had and go in the opposite direction and
Yeah.
find one of the other things.
Yeah, it's a big tasting wheel.
Yeah, but it's
Yeah.
the way we enjoy things today is we don't just want one experience over and over and over the way our parents and grandparents did. We use so much more discretion in the cigars we enjoy, the wines we drink, the beer we're going to crack open, what we're going to wear. It's, you know, we're out of this uniformed mentality,
Yes.
brand loyal mentality, and now it takes so much more discretion. So the good news is there is definitely something within the Ferio Tego portfolio for everyone. You just need to find it.
Couldn't have said it better, folks. And where can they find you?
You
Online.
can, all things at Michael Herklots and at Ferio Tego on everything except X or Twitter, which is Ferio Tego Cigars.
Somebody had Ferio Tego?
Yeah, can you believe it? And it's dormant too. If anyone knows how to get in touch with that guy, let me know.
Yeah, that's the worst. All right. Well, thank you for being here.
Yeah,
Thanks
thank
for
you.
being on. Creekside fam, thank you as always for the support of this podcast and this channel so we can sit down and talk with awesome people like Michael. Until we see y'all next time, go smoke in good company. Talk to y'all soon. Peace.